Well, to start with, I would like to warn you, we are talking about poops. It's not that very nice, not so good smell for you. So the poop warning is just starting by that soon. In the next 13 minutes from now on, you can go to the toilets after you having this kind of environment. But how to do that? Yes, 500 people here. You have to wait until a certain time that people somehow that need to watch, need to wipe the butt and then throw it away. And what next? Flush away, right? Most of you just flush away whatever you have last night, last morning, I don't know. Well, how long you spent to that kind of business? In the morning, in the evening, and perhaps in the afternoon as well. How long do you spend? Of course, only 3 years in your whole lifetime. Your sleeping is quite long, of course. Your work, even chewing the food, is smaller to the whole life. Totally 3 years you need to spend in the toilets. 3 years in your life, 60 years old of you or whatever. Then it is very important that how you can manage, how we can manage the better way that the people would like to use the toilets. We feel right now it's better in Thailand at least, or in many of the developed countries. We are proud to say that we have everywhere in the country, in the area that we can reach to the toilet safely and nicely, and people would like to use that. And then there are so many of the people cannot do that. 2.6 billion people nowadays in our planet that haven't any of that access to the toilets. If they have no access, what to do? If they have no this kind of toilets, what should they do? They don't have this kind of box, then they go out to the field, throw it away, and do some poops out of that. So that's just a big challenge for our planet right now. It's not the food, it's not the water, but it is about that how we can manage. That links together, that links your food, the food that you eat yesterday, you eat the day before, and then you have to release. Then actually the toilets are very awesome. I guess that you need to stay there, you need to be there. But many of us, I think, you never think of that. What are the functions of the toilets? The toilets for you, the toilets for us. It's just that, okay, the place that we have some problem in our stomach, in our intestine, and then we would like to release in this kind of a box. And then after that, we can just flush. Finish your business. Some nicer that could be clean, and then spray some the perfumes in the toilets and makes it nice to stay for the people who stay who would like to stay after. But many of them stay in the developing countries like in India, in Africa, in Bangladesh, or some neighboring countries from Thailand in Southeast Asia still have no toilets. And what to do? That's why we have about that this kind of the ideas that we need the toilets for many years ago. So that one of the interventions that we would like to do that we have done in the past 200 years ago, that the spread of the cholera is an example that how we deal with these kind of the problems. The cholera can kill many thousands of people a year in the past. And then you can notice that even we have many vaccines, many new medicines, many good hospitals, many good doctors, but it never ever stop. It never ever eradicate this kind of a disease. Why is that? One of the main things is that even if we have a very good vaccine, very good medicine program, but if you stay in the dirty area, in the dirty environment, then the cholera or the virus or the bacteria can grow up again. Then they can reappear to the planet. Then just talk about that the toilets history. That's one of the great interventions in the world that we're starting. But interestingly, that if you can see from the previous 3,000 years ago, they have the King Minos. That's one in the Greek. They have the good intervention to place this kind of toilets in the palace for he himself in the palace, just to clean, just to having a very good area and clean things after his finished business. 3,000 years. What difference between our toilets today? Not much. More or less the same. And then a bit better that in 1596, in the palace of the United Kingdom, Queen Elizabeth got the flushing toilet with the tank of the water behind that, and then she can flush. Then, after that, still the same. We are sitting in the same technologies of about almost 3,000 years ago. So is that our development for the human being? Not at all. And then still we remain this kind of people having this kind of that and nothing to go, nowhere to go. If they just have this kind of toilets, does it look like the toilets for you? Not at all, though. You don't like to go that. Even if you have so much of that the problem in your stomach. But if it is in such a place. But for many people, 2.6 billion people, they have to stay. They have to survive with that. And then the know-how, the knowledge to get the toilet is just, okay, having this, the bowls, and then the hole in the soil. That's finished. That's enough. But the question is that really enough to get this kind of toilets, which so-called to be a kind of a luxury things for the people out there? Then still, with that, I talked a lot on that, the 2.6 billion for our population, about 7 billion in the world, in the planet. And then we still lack of that the adequate sanitation globally. In Africa itself, almost 70%, or 7 out of 10 of the people having no access to the toilets. In Asia, we also have about that 64%. In Oceania and the Pacific, it's about that almost 50%. So that is the great challenge that we need a new kind of toilets. Or even if very simple toilets, they have no access. But how to do that? So normally, if we talk about the poop cycle, we are saying that, we released our food yesterday, and after that, dumping somewhere into our toilets, and then flush away somewhere. I don't care. I don't mind. Not to my area, but somewhere else in the canals, in the river, that's fine. But do you know that some area we could place a kind of treatment facilities to treat nicely in Europe, in US, and then they return back anyway to your food, right? You eat your own poops. Sorry for that. But it is a fact. But the abnormal one, that could be the biggest challenge for us, for the people that if they have no facilities like in US, like in UK, they cannot treat their wastewater, they cannot treat their shit good enough. Then they directly contaminate to the water, and then they use that water to watering the farms, and then you get that kind of poops. Contaminated to the foods, and then you eat it. That's why the diseases causing a lot of the problem, the deaths in these the countries a lot. That we have to avoid this kind of abnormal poop cycle for that. So that, of course, you may ask that why that no people would like to help these poor people. There are so many kind of generous donors. Japan, US, or ADB, or even the Gates Foundation himself. They would like to build a new toilet for the people. But how many? 2.6 billion people. Of course, we cannot just saying that one toilet for one people. We can say that about that 5 people for one toilet. So that means that we have to have at least 500 million toilets to be built. Or about that another 500 billion public toilets to be built. Is that easy? One toilet costs about that $300, and then you multiply that, then submit the project to the World Bank, to the Asian Development Bank. That's finished, like this. But how effective of this kind of a donor program, just having the simple toilets, but people still using that for the 1 year, 2 years of time, and then so bad smell, so dirty, and then they will not use any longer. So many of the failures, if you just thinking in the very traditional way that having the structures and having the toilets, that could not be good. So one of the big campaigns in India that I have been visited that for about that couple of weeks ago, they have the program so-called No Toilets, No Bride. If you have no toilets in your home, in your house, in your home, then the bride will not go to your the man for that having no toilets. So that could be another incentive that we should place the toilets in the better way around, that otherwise people would not like to invest for that. Another cause of the problem of having no toilets, especially in a school, is that they have the problems of if it is so dirty, the girls would not like to go to school. 10-15% in the school that have to drop, the school childs have to drop out because of no toilets, because of very bad or dirty toilets. And then imagine about that in the very close area, Indonesia and Australia, they have the same population, about that 1.3 billion cubic meter of the wastewater to be treated. But only few percent in the Jakarta can be treated. But if you think about Jakarta, we may think about the whole country of Indonesia. They have facing a lot of that the disaster, tsunami or whatever of the volcano eruptions. But we considering the sanitation disease, it can cause much more than the disaster that has happened in the last 10 years. So that the disaster by the sanitation, poor sanitation, could cause a lot. But interestingly, that we talk about the cell phone, the new technologies, that we have 6.8 billion, 90% of the people having access to mobile phone. But why the people have no toilets? Because of the poor technologies, because of that no money. That's a big question that we have to address ourselves, whether we can use the cell phone technology into the toilets. Is that possible or not? Let me see about that. So we would imagine that we need to reinvent the toilets, that of course that the satellite technology would be one of them, that we can control that how to treat, how to clean, and then after that we have to manage and treat properly before we reuse, before we apply that into the farmlands as a fertilizers or as the water. Then we need reinventing the toilets program that we are doing now, and then we are very passionate to do that, because even 15 minutes talk, 21 children are dead because of that diarrhea, because of this kind of poor access to the toilets. And I hope that we will be able to reinvent the very new technology that accessible to the poor, and then they can help that. So that let's get our shit together. And then we can save the world one toilet at a time. Then we can build up the new environment, the new sanitation area that we can move, and then prevent the 6.8 billion to have the access for the people, for all. Thanks a lot for your kind attention.